Art during persecution. What do you think of when you hear the word persecution? I envision a person being pulled away from their normal daily routines and ridiculed when seen in public. It's a word that describes destructive actions of people, and sadly isn't anything new in our world. According to Oxford dictionaries, persecution means hostility and ill treatment, especially because of race or political or religious beliefs. People have been persecuted throughout history due to specific characteristics that make them who they are. They've had to adapt and recreate their life so that they could survive in a world of persecution. Often these changes are reflected in artwork that is created before, during, and after these periods when persecution occurs. Persecution doesn't seem to be preventable because there is evil in the world, and that evil is seen in people. Often these people were once good, but were pushed into conforming for fear of being ridiculed too. Evil also is seen in people that for some reason seek out horrid deeds. This isn't to say that striving to hinder persecution of others should be brushed aside, because there is always hope no matter what is occurring. This presentation is to highlight the changes that occur in art during times of persecution, and how people despite it continue to create something beautiful in a world that can be so ugly. The period of the Roman Empire when Christians were persecuted and their religious artwork was forbidden will be examined in this presentation. Before the era of persecution, Roman artwork consisted of many sculptures, temples, houses, frescoes, mosaics, murals, portraits, aqueducts, and amphitheaters. Much of it was inspired by Greek art, so similar styles can be seen in Roman art. The Romans made changes to the Greek manner in their sculptures. It became more realistic, formal, and down-to-earth. They created sculptures of real people, family members, priests, generals, and leaders. Rarely would you see sculptures of women, because females weren't thought to have important influence in society. The sculpture, Augustus as Imperator, exemplifies Roman depiction of youth rather than exact representation. Standing with his arm outstretched sends a political message. Portraits were another form of art that they used to portray themselves and deceased loved ones. Examples of this include portrait of Terentius, Neo and his wife, Menander, and woman with stylus and writing tablet. The Romans perfected the mixing of concrete and were able to shape it in ways that masonry did not allow, which led them to create barrel, grain, and groined vaults. Hemispherical domes also arose. These were the largest covered spaces in the ancient world. The oldest known structure using concrete technology is the amphitheater in Pompeii, Italy, seating 20,000 people. The vast temples, arenas, and aqueducts were important in Roman society too. So were their houses, a place where professionals could meet privately with clients. They lavishly decorated their gardens with marble benches and fountains, and their walls were painted with murals. Christian persecution began during the reign of Nero Claudius in 64 CE. A large fire wiped out a huge part of Rome, which he blamed on Christians. After this, people known or suspected of being Christians were interrogated. Those whose faith could not be shaken were taken to the Colosseums, where they were fed to wild beasts. Even after Nero's suicide, they were persecuted by those that ruled Rome. Christians were an easy target to blame. Depictions of Christians being persecuted were shown in artwork such as stained glass, paintings, and sculptures. For the first time, anti-Christian literature grew in popularity because Marcus Aurelius allowed them to go through an easier process of producing their work. He also allowed informers to deal with Christians in less leniency. Later, Roman emperors added edicts, required participation in pagan rituals, and certifications to the requirements to prove a person was not a Christian. During the reign of Diocletian, troubles escalated and the Great Persecution began to exterminate Christianity and its followers. The end of the era of Christian persecution in the Roman Empire occurred in 313, when the Edict of Milan was issued by Constantine. At the end of the 4th century, Christianity became the official religion of Rome. New churches were built that reflected this transformation. The Church of St. Peter, the Church of Nativity, and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre are from this time. These churches housed a large number of congregations. Unique to former churches, they focused more on the interior of the structures and the visual images and symbols. Thus, the Christian basilica emerged, which became the basis of Christian architecture. One of Constantine's basilica was the Basilica Nova, one of the largest projects since the Severan dynasty, which ended in 235. The Romans moved from cremation to burial under the influence of Christianity. Decorated sarcophagi and mummy portraits became very popular. Many were decorated with Greek heroines and heroes with the head of the deceased depicted. They replaced the funerary mask and mummies with portraits of the deceased. A few examples of the sarcophagus and mummy artwork are the Melphi sarcophagus, mummy of Artemidorus, and young woman Huara. Huara is among the finest examples of the painted female portraits found. Persecution of people groups isn't just a historical event. Today, there are many people around the world that face such cruelty for their beliefs or ethnic origin. It destroys people's lives and takes almost everything from them. Persecution needs to be opposed by each of us while it is still local.